About a year ago, I made this video. This is a tier list of Plants vs. Zombies plants focused specifically around speedrunning and where I thought they were ranked based on their viability in speedruns. In all honesty, when this tier list was made, it wasn't completely horrible, and in fact, it is still one of the most viewed videos on my channel. However, things have changed, and this list is by no means perfect. In fact, it's quite outdated. There have been a lot of strat changes, runner changes, and most importantly, I'm better at the game too. With about 2 years of new strat developments and 7 minutes shaved off of my PB time since then, I'm here to give a new and improved, up-to-date version of this tier list. Hi, my name is Sasquatch. I'm a top 20 PvZ speedrunner, and this is an updated version of my PvZ speedrunning plans tier list. Let's talk a little bit about how this tier list is going to be ranked. First, I'm going to be looking at the effectiveness of the plant in general in a speed run. The 50% rule is the most important thing that I'm going to be addressing when it comes to this. What is the 50% rule? Well, basically, if you kill the zombies faster, then the zombies will also spawn faster. The ranking of a plant depends a lot on how effectively this plant can get the 50% rule. Next, I want to take a look at how the plant is used in a speedrunning context. A lot of these plants on this list are used in completely different ways compared to casuals, so it matters a lot when it comes to this tier list how the plants are being used. And finally, I have to consider how often the plant is getting used in speedruns overall. Since there are many categories in speedrunning, I will be trying to take into account as many as possible. Because any percent is the most popular category, it holds the most weight in my mind. So if a plant has more use in any percent, that means it's going to get a slightly better score than other plants that maybe don't have use in any percent. I have a utility list right here, like I did last time, but only these 4 plants are going in it this time, and every other plant is going to be ranked. There were a few plants last time that I didn't rank that I want to rank this time, so make sure that you stay tuned for those rankings. As always, I'm going to be going in almanac order, so let's go ahead and get started. I think what I said for my last tier list still holds true about pea shooter. It's just a C tier plant. And that is probably never going to change ever. It's decent for an early game option or for short levels, but if there's the option, speedrunners are almost always going to be reaching for something else. This plant is fine when it comes to getting the 50% rule, but it's really slow compared to other options that are on this list. After the level 1-9 and any percent, pea shooter is only used in a select few levels, like for example 3-1 and 5-1, and in 3-1 we want to use it because 3-1's short, and in 5-1 we want to use it in order to counteract the cabbage pult cooldown. It's also used more commonly in 2-1 for the same reason as 5-1, and also because Puffshroom doesn't have infinite range like pea shooter does. But overall, it really just doesn't get used that much, so I think C tier is a good option for it. You gotta know where Cherry Bomb's going, right? Surely. I think I put this in A tier in my last tier list, which actually baffles me, which is, I don't know what I was thinking. This is an absolute S tier plant. Like, there is no doubt about Cherry Bomb being an S tier plant. We take this plant in so many any percent levels. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it has to be like more than half the any percent stages that we're bringing that we're bringing Cherry Bomb in. Cherry Bomb is one of the most used plants in a speedrunning context. Because when is it not useful to blow things up, you know what I mean? The 3x3 area of the explosion of this plant makes it extremely useful for final waves, and makes it the best tool we have for final waves, all the way up till about Doomshroom. And even then, we don't have Coffee Bean for pool levels, so you still use Cherry Bomb even once you have Doomshroom. It's very good for getting the 50% rule, and can be a fast solution to literally any wave that speedrunners would have to deal with. Like, any wave that you have a problem with, use the Cherry Bomb. Not only that, but you also have pretty good cleanup value with this plant, as in you can get the rule of one wave while also dealing with a previous wave. So it allows you more versatility whenever it comes to killing the zombies that you need to kill and getting rid of potential future threats. It's so useful, it has so many use cases, and speedrunners have to use close to 100 Cherry Bombs in every run, like if not more. It's such a good plant. S tier for this guy. Walnut is honestly pretty good in speedruns. Some of the levels where speedrunners pick Walnut, it serves one of the most important roles in the level. Despite this, it's probably not going to be a lot different than the first tier list I made, mostly because not a lot has changed with Walnut, and it still serves the same role for the most part. but I've gotten better at applying this role in speedruns myself. I'm definitely going to be putting this in a B tier. Part of the reason why Walnut is in not A tier is just the fact that it's not more useful. The plant honestly just gets outclassed whenever you're talking about later levels. The last level that I use it in personally in my runs is 3-1, and that is because we play 3-1 similar to 1-8, and we use Walnut in 1-8. The only problem is that in the future, we have better plants to take care of short levels. Although there are some pretty cool applications in Night with this plant. There's things like 2-6 and 2-1 where we can take Walnut in order to stall a zombie. But like I said earlier, at a certain point, we stop caring altogether about stalling the zombies at the mower. And instead of using Walnut, we opt for more instants because it starts being faster than mower value. B tier is really not bad for Walnut though. Now this, this is quite the plant. Realistically, just think about what this plant does. Potato Mine is as cheap as it gets in this game without being completely free, can instantly kill zombies, and has several levels that have its own strat dedicated to it. Potato Mine benefits from doing predictions a lot. If you guess right, boom, Potato Mine value. You guess wrong, it's not even that big of a deal because you can save that mine for a later wave. Eventually, the mine is going to kill something, basically. The only drawback is that it has a 15-second arm time, and it can be pretty inconsistent to use with that. If it could instantly kill zombies as soon as you planted it, that would be an easy S tier, but it doesn't, so it's going in A tier. Oh, Snow Pea. Do I really have to talk about this plant? There's some gimmick strats with it, and I think that those were mostly memes. There was like some kind of weird Gloomshroom strategy that used garlic and snow pea or something dumb. Maybe chomper instead of garlic. It was a complete meme. Otherwise, in any percent, this plant's really only used in 1.7 and 1.10, mostly because it doesn't get the 50% rule any faster than like Pea Shooter does, and we don't like the effect. If you combine that with like the expensive cost and the fact that slowing down zombies is like not good for speedruns, this plant just isn't good. So it ends up being in D tier. Okay, so this is the first plant that I criminally underrated in my tier list. And in my opinion, I think that it was a giant mistake to put Chomper in B tier last time. Let me just explain myself. Chomper has genuinely become one of my favorite plants in the game, and it basically ties the spot with Gloomshroom at this point. And in some cases, I've even started saying like on stream that my favorite plant is probably just Chomper at this point. And I mean, there's some pretty good reasons for why I love this plant. It's the only instant plant in the game with a fast cooldown, meaning after 7.5 seconds, you can just use the plant again. The only one. It's the only one. That alone, that should be setting off sirens and bells saying that this plant is just good. Basically, Chomper is always there when you need it and will eliminate the highest health zombie in the wave, which is super important to us. And it can be strategically reused in levels like 1-8, 2-2, and 3-1 as well. When it comes to speedrunning, like what I said earlier with how I'm actually ranking this tier list, Chomper gets the 50% rule immediately if you use it on the highest health zombie, like a Buckethead or a Zomboni, and on top of that, it has very high utility in terms of preventing body blocking, which is basically where there's multiple zombies in a row that are blocking each other and preventing you from getting damage on zombies that are spawning in new waves. This is a pretty common concept where you have zombies that are blocking each other off, but you need to kill the zombie that has spawned the most recently. So for that, Chomper is extremely useful because you can plant the Chomper behind all of the zombies that you don't care about and just get to the one that you do care about. I mean, take a look at literally any percent run within like the top 20, the top 25. You'll see that Chomper is genuinely just insane. It's used so much. I mean, seriously, this is the speedrunning plant. It's going in S tier. I don't know what I was thinking with my last tier list. This plant absolutely deserves S tier. Alright, now we got another banger. Yeah, Repeater is actually good for the opposite reason of Chomper. Basically, Repeater and Chomper are both fast cooldown and relatively expensive plants, but Repeater is meant to stay on the board and clean up for you rather than Chomper, who is used to blitz through every wave of zombies that you can. Repeater is used as the cleanup, while Chomper is used as the actual, like, core fastness of the level, if you will. So with that in mind, Chomper is used as basically the way to go faster, and then Repeater is used as the source of not falling apart during the level. And Repeaters are one of the best cleanup plants in the game when it comes to speedrunning, and in some categories, they even make up, like, a main defense. Getting the Repeater as early as 1.9 is also a really big plus, since we have so many opportunities to use it. Also, the fact that 1.9 is the perfect level to showcase how speedrunners use Repeater and Chomper in tandem to get some crazy fast times. The only thing that I think is holding Repeater back from S tier actually is the fact that it is still firepower, and firepower in this game is just generally slow, and that's why we need Chomper to kind of support the Repeater. But this is why you also have to be smart about your decisions in a run. Figuring out when to use a Repeater versus when to use a Chomper or a different instant to go faster is pretty important in the run. And you'll even see this without Repeater, where you should be planting like a firepower plant instead of planting an instant plant, for example. A tier is where it sits. It's just a really solid, effective firepower option. I know I have a little bit of a reputation with this plant. But this plant is pretty good. It's not my favorite plant in the game, but it's genuinely one of the best plants in the game. And some people will say that it is the best plant in the game. I used to be a little bit more on the side of like, no, it's not. What are we talking about? But like, I mean, the plant's free. I mean, how much more do you need? It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, this plant just, it goes in S tier. Puffshroom is one of the firepower plants that can be pretty fast. You can just replant them, basically, as soon as they die. And the only time that this is a problem is, like, in 2 flag levels. But in 2 flag levels, generally, you're going to be taking some other alternative, like, firepower option. Typically, you bring a support option with Puffshroom if you're taking it for, like, a 2 flag level. There's even some applications in any percent, like in early pool, to bring Puffshroom if you have 8 slots, because it's just that versatile and you can use it for stalling. And it's a better option than Walnut too, because you can re-speed zombies as well. It absolutely deserves S tier. I think I put it in A tier in my last list. S tier this time, please. Please and thank you. There's actually a really funny story about Fume Shroom. I ranked it like low A tier in my first tier list, but some things have changed. First, whenever I initially made this tier list, we were taking Fume in every 2 flag night level that we could. So like we were taking it in 2.4, 2.7, and 2.9, we just took Fume. We didn't think about it. Nowadays, though, Fume Shroom has been pretty outclassed in favor of other faster plants like Cherry Bomb or Potato Mine, and we generally don't really use it in most of these 2 flag levels anymore. In 2.4, there's an alternative strat that involves Potato Mine, and in 2.9, we drop Fume Shroom for Cherry Bomb. Fume has managed to remain on 2.7 though, just because in 2.9 we have Doom Shroom, and in 2.4 we have Chomper, basically. Because in 2.9 it's viable to take Doom Shroom, and in 2.4 it's viable to take Chomper. Despite all of the things that I'm saying, I still don't think this plant is that much worse than B tier, because we still use it in things like 2.3 and 2.7, plus there is the obvious, very obvious use for it later on. Not to mention that, like, even if you are playing Gloom Shrooms, Fume Shroom is still a good, like, backup firepower option. You'll see me do this in a lot of later roof levels, where if I'm using Gloom Shrooms and I have all the Gloom Shrooms that I need out, or I have all of the stuff that I need down, like I have the Gloom Shrooms and I have my Doom Shroom, and I've used my Squash, you'll start seeing me, like, planting Fume Shrooms. I don't think Fume Shroom will ever be lower than B tier. Now we have the first plant that I'm actually ranking that I didn't rank on my last one. I want to talk about why I'm ranking it this time, whenever I didn't rank it before. Last time, I put the Gravebuster right here in the utility tier list. But I really think that this plant is able to be ranked, especially since we're taking it over other plants in nights. It's not required by any means, but it is a faster option than other plants, which is part of why I think that it needs to be ranked. It has some very clear influence over the speedrun if we're taking it over something else, right? If we take something that isn't Gravebuster, we'll probably end up losing time. So by no means is Gravebuster required, but it is a choice that the speedrunners are making to maintain speed. Let's talk about what this plant's ranking is then. This is a really good plant. It prevents so much time loss. A lot of the time, you'll see grave layouts that look like this on 2.9, and then Gravebuster allows you to not lose time to this grave layout because it's Gravebuster, and you could just remove graves. So it absolutely makes the game faster. While it can't get 50% rules by itself just by using it, it does make it faster because it allows you to get future 50% rolls with the exclusion of that grave that you're busting. Being able to eliminate graves is an absolutely critical ability in Knight, and it allows you to get rid of some graves so that you can like formulate a final wave plan. In that case, I really think it deserves A tier. It prevents so much time loss in Knight. I think it deserves it. Hypnoshroom is probably the weirdest instant plant in the game. On its own, it sounds really, really good. The problem is that once we get Squash in any percent, it just gets outclassed by Squash. And then again, we don't use it past Knight, so it's a little bit strange. What I'm basically saying is that Hypno serves the Squash role before Squash. Honestly, if Hypnoshroom was the same cost as Squash, it would probably be more viable to take in a fog level or something. I don't know if we would actually end up taking it, but Hypnoshroom is weird because as soon as we get Squash, we stop using Hypnoshroom. With all of that said, I do think it's B tier still. I just can't really think of any other places where it gets used other than Knight. Scaredy Shroom. Scaredy Shroom is really critical for a lot of the speedrunning meta whenever it comes to like nighttime levels. This is because of the fact that Scaredy is the best support to Puffshroom that any speedrunner could ask for. With Scaredy and Puffshroom combined together, that firepower is fast. Unless you have something like a bucket head on screen, Scaredy plus Puffshroom is a really fast firepower option. Scaredy is cheap, effective, and solves Puff's only real weakness, which is the range, and it's just, how much more could you ask for? It's the best support. You don't have to wait that long in order to start affording Scaredy's either, so that's not really that big of a concern. So usually, speedrunners are taking both Scaredy Shroom and Puffshroom because once you run out of space with Puffshrooms, then you can start using Scaredy Shrooms to make up the difference. We're basically always taking Scaredy in Fog, and we start taking Scaredy as soon as we can in Night. So I really think that it deserves the S tier ranking here. Honestly, I can see like an argument to put this with like Repeater. In my opinion, Scaredy Shroom makes the Fog levels and the Night levels a lot simpler and a lot less complicated. So in my mind, it gets S tier. Ice Shroom is able to fill some pretty niche uses, but for what it's worth, they're also pretty cool. I put Ice Shroom in D tier last time, I think. Part of the reason why I put it in D tier back then was because the idea of Ice Shroom was basically the same as the idea of Snoopy, where Ice Shroom was not super useful because it freezes things, right? But I'm a bit better at the game now, so I think it at least deserves C tier. We don't take Ice Shroom on our own. We will usually take Ice Shroom if we're forced to, like in something like 210 or 510, but in 210 it serves a pretty niche role, and in 510 it serves one of the most crucial roles. Let's talk about the 210 situation first. For the most part, you don't really get to use this guy that often, and generally you'll want other plants anyway. But let's say that you hypno a football zombie, right? And then another football spawns in that same row in the next wave. Then, if you wait like a couple of seconds and then use the Ice Shroom, then you'll have all the zombies on screen, and the football zombie, your football zombie, the hypnoed football zombie, will continue eating the non-hypnoed football zombie, the one that's part of the wave, and not take any damage because the other zombie is frozen. So it's a pretty little niche and nice little interaction that you can do. It just requires that you also have a hypnoed zombie. So it gets a little niche. Let's talk a little bit about 510 now. 510 is one of the most important stages in an any percent run. Ice Shroom is used to freeze Zomboss. This is a very important mechanic because in tandem with Jalapeno, you're able to do some damage to Zomboss and then freeze him in place. This allows you to deal more damage with your catapult plans, and then also you can do another combination of like Jalapeno then Ice Shroom again to freeze him for an extended amount of time. You want to really maximize the amount of time that you have him frozen, and using Jalapeno first thaws him out, and then you can use the Ice Shroom again, which will refresh the freeze timer. It freezes for longer whenever you are going from nothing, rather than if you are freezing something that's already frozen. Ice Shroom deserves C tier because it serves really important roles in both 210 and 510, albeit a little bit niche in 210. All right, Doom Shroom. Well, I mean, Doom Shroom is just Cherry Bomb, but like better, because Doom Shroom is able to clear entire final waves. It has more range, and it's like cheaper for some reason than Cherry Bomb. Not only that, but it has an entire strat dedicated to storing Doom Shrooms in Roof. Basically, this strat is that we will plant down Doomshrooms and let them sleep until we need to ignite them for like a wave 9 or a final wave, which, by the way, if you don't know about wave 9s, they have to be dealt with instantly in order to progress to the next wave. The fact that this plant can just instantly take care of final waves is just, that's what makes this an S tier plant. It's such a good plant. It's such a good plant. The easiest S tier ever. All right, cool. Doomshroom was followed up by the next easiest S tier of my life, Squash. Yeah, there you go. Squash has got to be the most picked plant that speedrunners take. You get Cherry Bomb earlier, and you probably use Cherry Bomb more than you use Squash in any percent. But if we expand the category situation to more than just any percent, I think Squash gets used more than Cherry Bomb. I'm not like 100% on that, so maybe don't like quote me on that. But I would not be surprised if we used Squash like a significant margin more than Cherry Bomb. Squash is just the easiest take ever, and Squash should always be your first choice as an instant plant. Chomper should be, considered, but the reason why Squash is so good is because it gets the 50% rule really effectively, and it's really cheap, and it can serve an early game supportive role. If you're confused about which instant to take, you take Squash. Need a decent option for early game? Squash. Need a good option for final wave help? Squash. Need to kill a zombie to get the rule? Squash. Do you need a thing that? Squash. Need something? Squash. Squash. You get the idea. Squash is the most versatile instant in PvZ, and it's not even a little close. Second easiest S tier of my life. At some point between my last tier list and this tier list, there was some weird 3-9 shenanigans where there was a really strange 3-peater strat where you dropped Lily Pad in order to use 3-peater and bring an extra instant. But other than some niche scenarios like that, or New Game plus Shopless, it's not super useful. It's way too expensive, and it makes life pretty difficult in longer stages without the proper setup. The game can punish you with RNG for taking repeater or 3-peater as well. You have to be open to the idea that you may or may not just die, which is part of why the IL strat with 3-peater was a pool cleaner exclusive. The point is that 3-peater tends to be unused just because it's not as good as other options. It's definitely low C tier, high D tier maybe. I'm gonna put it in high D tier. I just don't think this plant is used at all enough to warrant ranking this plant any higher. Tangle Kelp has actually grown on me over the years that I've been speedrunning this game. I started not liking this plant a super whole lot whenever I started, and now I like it a decent amount. At least I like it enough to, take it over mine in some cases. It's the cheapest way to get rid of any zombie in the pool, which, by the way, is a really strong ability. Not only that, but it also gets so many applications while speedrunning. Tangle Kelp can help with some setup waves, giving you some time and sun to get extra repeaters. It can also get rid of annoying snorkel zombies that you don't want to deal with, because in speedrunning you often ignore snorkels because they just aren't super important. They are still important enough though that if you don't kill them before they get to your repeaters, you are at risk of losing a repeater, which just loses you time in general. Kelp is a good option for that. It could also help with a bad ambush zombie. It does all of this for a really low price of just 25 some. Oh yeah, also Kelp has the coolest little tech in PvZ. Whenever you throw the Kelp down, if you shovel the Kelp as it's pulling a zombie down, it'll just instantly delete that zombie. You'll skip the animation and kill the zombie a second earlier than normal. So a few extra points for being cool. The only drawback is that you can't use this plant on land. So I'm gonna put it in A tier right behind mine, because I think that these two are interchangeable, to be honest. Jalapeno is just a generally solid plant. It has some uses in 80%, so I'm gonna go over a couple. First of all, I'm going to start with saying that you can use it in 5.2 and 5.3. So with a combination of Cherry Bomb, Potato Mine, Squash, and Jalapeno, and Chomper, you can deal with everything really fast. 5.2 and 5.3 at their peak are very, very fast levels. They're especially a lot faster, considering where we were a couple of years ago, where repeater was the strat and the meta, and nowadays, Starfruits have made those levels so much faster. Jalapeno is useful in those levels to make it a lot faster and just simplifies everything. But there's also a cool little strat where in some pool levels like 3.6 and 3.8, mostly 3.8, you can drop repeater and take Jalapeno if you have pool cleaners. And this is actually it's actually a viable strat. It's very weird and very strange, but it's actually a viable strat that works and can get a fast time. It's a little bit of a meme in the speedrunning community, just because usually if you're doing that run, like if you're doing that strat, you're usually throwing the run just to see if you can get like a cool fast time. I'm putting it in A tier. In any percent, spikeweed isn't used all that much. There's a couple of options where it's used a little bit. There's an IL completely dedicated to both spikeweed and spike rock that a certain cow has spent a lot of time doing. But other than that, it doesn't really get used that often. There are some uses in categories like New Game Plus. You have to take like a counter to Zombonis because using Gloom Shrooms and Zombonis, it, you know, doesn't go very well. So you use spikeweed in order to prevent like catastrophe from happening. You can also use it in New Game Plus Shoplist where you can help like with Zombonis again, but the only issue is that if you're taking this plant, you typically have to take this plant. It's an instant for only one zombie, which is great for levels like 310, but unless you have 0 counter to vehicles, it's not really the best plant to, you know, speedrun with. So I'm gonna put it in D tier, just because it is actually able to counter at least one vehicle zombie, right? I'll put it in low C tier, but it is edging that line. It is right there. One wrong move, spikeweed, and I'll send you straight to D tier. I'll do it. If I was ranking Torchwood in 2020, this plant would be a lot higher than it is going to be right now. Speedrunners, we've evolved. So it's not, you know, we rank this plant a little bit lower. Repeater Torchwood was a really old any percent strategy that speedrunners could use in roof levels. It's still a good, like, it's still a good general strategy. Like, if you're a beginner just trying to get through your first run, you can do it, but there are faster strategies. Torchwood and Repeater is the option that I've talked about before. Again, by the way, this is the, like, that's the fastest shopless strategy in the game, and eventually it becomes Torchwood 3-peater. And if you are playing shopless, you might still want to use Starfruit over it, just because if you are taking Torchwood, you're basically saying that you will think that Torchwood will save you more time than, like, an instant plan. And, you know, sometimes that's not the case. Basically, the fact that you are taking Torchwood as a slot, and then you also need to take something else in order to make Torchwood work. And typically, if you're doing that, something like Starfruit with, you know, some instance is faster. Torchwood is still used sometimes, but it's not really enough to justify it being all that high. So I'm gonna put it like in middle of C tier. This plant just sucks. I mean, this plant's just garbage. Talnut is just garbage. I mean, you can use it in 310 for stalling, like with Walnut, but I mean, well, that's the only reason why I'm keeping it out of F tier. This plant just sucks. This plant just is bad. Talnut, terrible plant. D tier. Sea Shroom. I love Sea Shroom, but I don't love it as much as I love other plants. Although I will say, one thing I will say, it's like Puff Shroom in the fact that it gets a lot of bonus points for being free. It's not nearly as good because it has a longer cooldown, and it's water exclusive, but it's still a really solid plant with several applications in Fog. So, I mean, you know, it's good. It just doesn't have the same stalling capabilities as Puff Shroom because it doesn't have the same cooldown. It really is one of the most influential plants to Fog, though, just because it's free. It makes a really big difference in 1 flag levels, and it makes a really really big difference in early game too. It makes a really big difference on 1 flag levels because those levels tend to be really tight on sun, so we'd rather be using something for the little bit of sun that we have for like a few Scaredies and the Doom Shroom at the end. If you ask me, I think that Fog would be pretty horrible without this plant. So I'm gonna put this plant in A tier. It's kind of the same concept as Gravebuster, where it prevents a lot of time loss. It prevents a lot of time loss from not having it, rather than saving time because you have it. All right, I'm gonna get into some stuff. So there's gonna be a pretty long explanation for Plantern. A lot has changed with this plant to cause me to rank it. At the time of my original tier list, there was a certain runner who was doing runs, but hadn't quite made his mark on the PvZ speedrunning community yet. This player made a pretty large strat development at the top level where runners could actually choose to opt out of Plantern in favor of Tangle Kelp on some of the 1 flag Fog levels. These were levels like 4-3 and 4-8. Basically, the way that this works is you use Puff Shrooms and audio cues to figure out where the zombies are. The idea is that you don't actually need the Plantern to see, and you use a baseline strategy called column 8 Puff Shroom. Usually in speedrunning, we put our Puff Shrooms in column 7, but with this strategy, you will offset one of the Puff Shrooms and put them in column 8. This basically allows you to listen for the sounds in order to determine where the first few zombies will go. From there, you will predict with Scaredy Shrooms, stack all of your Sea Shrooms in one pool row, and use your Tangle Kelp in the other pool row. Basically, you don't use Plantern here because of this strategy, and it ends up being used less at the top level because of this strategy. This strategy also makes fog levels really interesting and skill-based. You have to use sound and context clues to make correct plays. So thanks for your contribution to the strat, Blackened. It's a really cool strat. But nowadays, Planturn is just used less in general because of this strat. Even if you choose to take Planturn, you'll be using it less because it's faster to delay it and plant a couple Scarities instead. So we're gonna put you in C tier. Sorry, not sorry, Planturn. I'll be so honest, I was going to do like a whole bit where I like ignored Cactus and then just like put it in F tier and didn't say anything, but it deserves a little bit of beating. I can't actually begin to even describe how awful this plan is. We don't take Cactus in the level that you're supposed to take Cactus in, and we choose to literally ignore the Balloon Zombie instead because it's faster than using the Cactus. Unlike Tallnuts, which barely stays afloat because of its stalling capabilities, this planet has no stalling capabilities. It does nothing, and it's so bad that if you have to take it in a certain category called New Game Plus Shopless, you call it the sad strat. I mean, how much worse does this plant get? This plant sucks. It's not even a good casual plant too, which means that this ranking casuals will also agree with. So like, bro, Cactus, you gotta lock in, bro. Come on. What is wrong with you? Oh, hey, would you look at that? An actually decent plant for countering balloons and being able to see. Except this plant isn't a good speed plant either. Okay. Let me calm down. Blover is actually not horrible. Blover is able to sub out for Planturn, but we only do that because we have to for the balloons. For the most part, it's still a pretty neat plant that serves a dual purpose. Balloons in a 2-flag level basically means that we have to take Blover because we'll die without it. And if you don't die without it, then you will die next time without it. Balloon waves are fast with a Blover, but if you get too many balloon waves, it's really hard to expend 100 Sun every wave. If we didn't have to take Blover, we would definitely take something else. Despite all of this, Blover can still be fast, so it's just a lot better than Cactus. I'm gonna rank it C tier, right next to Planturn. Small history lesson about this plant. Whenever I saw this plant as a child, whenever I was playing PvZ, I immediately hated it, and I have hated it ever since. I think that one of the worst plants in PvZ is Split Pea. Some of PvZ's plants are super original, super cool, super awesome. Split Pea is not. Split Pea takes two plants that already exist and merges them together into one plant that looks like a mutation. I still have to try to rank it fair. Split Pea has a neat little glitch. There's a version of PvZ that speedrunners play that includes a glitch that the Split Pea uses. Basically, if the Split Pea is shooting backwards and forwards, it will shoot two peas both ways. This makes it pretty good for 410, especially with Digger zombies. It's better than Cactus at least, right? We're gonna put it in D tier. It will never be higher than literally this position though. Literally as low in D tier as it can get, and it only gets bailed out because in 410 it's like slightly useful. Strap in. We're going to be talking a lot about Starfruit. At this point, Starfruit is the most revolutionary plant in PvZ speedrunning. There have been a lot of changes to strats involving stars in the past couple of years that were not mentioned in my previous video because they didn't exist. Last time, the main strat changes were 5-2 and 5-3, but now Starfruits have been fully implemented with the inclusion of Roof Cleaners too. It started a little bit of a debate between whether or not Gloomshrooms are better or Starfruits are better. And ultimately, it all just comes down to personal preference, unless you have infinite money, in which Gloomshroom is better. The main thing that you have to grasp as an understanding is that Gloomshrooms saves time on 5-4, but you don't have Roof Cleaners for 5-5. Starfruit, you lose time on 5-4, but you keep the Roof Cleaners for 5-5, which means that you can save time. Basically, you trade one for the other. And because 5-5 is such a variable level, a lot of people have opted to take the Roof Cleaners. Alright, let's talk about where it goes on the list. First of all, it's a firepower plant, but it's one of the most effective firepower plants in the game, right up there next to Repeater. Starfruit by itself is able to be pretty fast once you get a lot of them down. One of the most influential things about Starfruit though is that it has a lot of versatility around the board, and is able to cover basically the whole thing with just a few of them. And emphasis on a few. You only need a few in 2-flag level, and you only need a few more than that in 3-flag levels to really make Starfruit count. This means that you can dedicate way more sun to instance than you can with something like Repeater. Because Repeater's cost is so hefty and you need one for every row, Starfruit ends up being a lot cheaper and a lot more attractive. With that extra sun, you can dedicate it to going faster with instants. And you can also include Doomshroom and Coffee Bean to replace Jalapeno and Mine, so it ends up being a very versatile and cool strat. Starfruit is also one of the more nuanced strategies of PvZ speedrunning, so a lot of people will play things differently depending on their playstyle. Suffice to say, this plant has skyrocketed as one of the new staple speedrunning plants, just like Repeater. The best thing about this is that my last tier list actually highlighted this even before all of these Starfruit strats existed. I guess past Sasquatch was just an oracle and knew what he was talking about, huh? Yeah, A tier. A tier, right next to Repeater. In my opinion, Pumpkin is the best support plant in the game, and it serves the purpose that it serves the best. On top of this, it allows the fastest speedrunning strategy that PvZ has to offer. Pumpkin Glooms in Column 9 is the fastest strategy that speedrunners have come up with. Doing it on levels like 5.4, 5.6, 5.7, and 5.8 can yield some of the fastest times in the game, but it also yields some of the largest risk in the game too. Basically, if you mess up, then you literally lose your run. And that sucks, because I've done that before. In ILs, though, this strategy reigns pretty supreme with the fastest ILs in several categories. Admittedly, outside of the strategy, Pumpkin is a little bit more niche, but I still think it's really good and deserves an A tier spot. I will put it at the bottom of A tier because I could still see someone putting in a B tier, for sure. Magnet only really has one application anymore on 4.9 and any percent. So Magnet has really dropped down several stages since we talked about it previously. I think I put it in A tier in my last tier list, but it's really not gonna make it there. Magnet Gloom strat is not used anymore, and it's been replaced by a faster Chomper Gloom alternative. We used to recommend Magnet Glooms to beginners on 5.9, but now we recommend Starfruit because it's a more easily digestible strategy whenever you're trying to learn the run itself. Now Magnet has been pretty outclassed and removed from your typical Gloom build, only really being useful in survival modes and a few minigames. Magnet really fell off in the last couple of years, so we're gonna go put it down in the B tier. Magnet did not age well, unfortunately. Cabbage Pult is like okay. I mean, it's fine, but we only use it once in 5.1. So I can't even really think outside of that level, I can't even think of where we, oh yeah, 5.10 we use it as well, I guess. Which, I mean, I don't know. It's not even that good in 5.10. You know what? If you don't mind, I'm just gonna do that. Yep, that's the one. I don't think there is a worse plant, I'll be so honest. Cabbage Pult gets used once. Cactus is at least maybe useful on 4.10, and Tallnut can at least still function as a stall. But Kernel? I mean, Kernel is just so bad. Even on the one level that we use it in any percent on 5.10, it is better used as a sacrificial lamb to save a flower pot. A flower pot is more important than a kernel pult. And no, I'm not even kidding. I wish I was. The only reason you'd ever bring kernel pult is for cob cannons. And at that point, you're not even using kernel pult. So like, this plant just sucks. It's F tier. Like, this is the worst plant ever. Horrible plant. Terrible plant. This plant sucks. Coffee Bean. This plant is getting a ranking for sure. I didn't rank this plant last time, but I am going to this time because, again, for the same reason as Gravebuster. It unlocks faster strategies that might not be available without it, which means that this is a very versatile and useful plant for late game any percent for allowing Doomshrooms and Gloomshroom to be used. Even for strategies like Starfruit, they use Doomshroom, which means that Coffee Bean is still viable. And Coffee Bean is also used in so many ILs and other strategies too. I mean, being able to wake up mushrooms in day is just, it's just the best. It's so good. And so I think this plant deserves S tier, based on that alone. Based on just the fact that this plant makes things so much better for ILs, so much stronger for several categories in the game, and it allows you to wake up mushrooms in daytime. Come on. Yes, it is utility, but it's really, really freaking good utility. And I think it deserves S tier. I'm pretty fond of Garlic still, because it's still a pretty good option for learning how to do Gloom strats, but at this point, I've seen Garlic a lot less as time goes on. There's other strategies like Starfruit strats, alternative Gloom strategies, and Pumpkin Glooms. It has really started getting outclassed. There's not really a good reason to take Garlic anymore, and the only level that I still take Garlic on, I don't even take it every time. It depends on how many zombies there are in the preview. I think it's still a good learning tool, and it can still get some pretty fast times, but at this point, I have started to divert myself off from different strategies. And I also recommend that beginners divert off of this strategy too. It would be more beneficial to get more practice with a different strat. I mean, it's just as point blank as that. All the other strategies that you would use in 5.6 are more applicable in other places. Chomper Glooms are applicable for safe 3 flag levels, Starfruits are applicable for literally all of Roof, and Pumpkin Glooms are applicable for the fastest strats of all. While I don't think that Garlic will get pushed down an entire tier, I do think that it should still be less used at this point, and considered a worse plant because of that. Low C tier. I don't even want to talk about this plant. I have like some like notes written down on the side. I don't even want to read them. Like, I don't care. I don't care. This plant is not good. This plant's bad. F tier plant. Friggin' hate this plant. Like it's like maybe only useful in Survival Endless. I'll give you one guess as to where Marigold's going. We don't need this plant for speedrunning. It's a complete meme. The existence of a money glitch completely invalidates the need for Marigold. The only time that you'll ever see someone take Marigold is like not a speedrunner. That's what I'll say. Half the categories don't even need money to begin with, so like whatever, bro. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. This plant basically might as well just be invisible. And finally, for the last plant that's in the normal game, we have Melon Pulse. And unfortunately for us, Melon Pulse ends up being pretty underwhelming. Melon doesn't really do anything in any percent other than 510. I think that I actually had the right idea with this plant initially. Melon is great for the Zomboss fight, but you want jalapenos and ice cream still more than you want Melon Pulse. So Melon Pulse are a good support, but they're not the main idea. It has some applications in like New Game Plus Shopless, but you know, so does literally everything else. I don't know. I think C tier is still a fine place to put it. And actually, I'm going to switch around my rankings a bit here. I'm going to still put Melon Pult down. I'm still going to put Melon Pult in C tier, but I think Plantain deserves B tier. Now we're on to upgrade plants. This is where things will get a little bit more complicated because some of these plants I can't rank fairly off of any percent, specifically because we don't use them. And I did try to rank all of these other plants fairly in terms of like any percent and also other categories. Plants like Split Pea, I considered Pogo Party, and I considered their uses in 410. I tried to be as fair as possible across all the categories. For specifically the upgrade plants, I'm going to have to do my ranking based off of not any percent, at least for some of them. With that out of the way, let's just go ahead and get started. Gatling Pea, oh man. Gatling Pea would be a good plant if there weren't better options. Gatling Pea is supposed to be an upgrade to Repeater, but it only ends up being useful in like Survival Roof Normal, as far as I'm aware, and like maybe Survival Hard Night, but I think that's an outdated strat now. I don't know. I haven't kept up with normal survival strats or survival strats in general for a long time because I don't really care about that category anymore. But I think D tier fits it fine enough. You know, it's fine. I'll put it there. It works. Twin Sunflower is only super worth it if you know that you're going to keep the plant on the field, but other than that, Twin Sunflower takes the longest time to profit out of all the sun plants, so you have to get it down early enough, and early game is tough to fit it in because you need so many other plants. Overall, pretty niche plant, so I'm gonna again put it in D tier. You either don't like Gloomshroom that much or you love Gloomshroom. In either case, there's one thing Gloom is for sure, and it's fast. By far, this is the fastest firepower plant in the game. Gloom makes the game so much faster in so many places, with ILs specifically. It holds a lot of the the fastest IL strategies and a lot of the different ILs, just because it is the fastest strategy in the game, especially with Column 9 pumpkins. I will say though, Gloomshroom also has some versatility. You can do Column 9 with pumpkins, but it goes hella fast. You could do a Column 8 strategy and leave Column 9 open for something like Chomper, or you can do something in between. We're gonna put this plant in S tier because, I mean, come on. I mean, Gloomshroom is the entire reason why Roof at its IL peak is faster than Pool. As a speedrunner, you just can't ignore this beast of a plant. I mean, it's such a good plant. S tier, absolutely. And now we're gonna get let down by, like, every plant on the board. Like, literally every other plant. Casuals, let's have a talk. This plant is not good in speedruns. In the context of speedrunning, there's just so many better options. If you're using Cattail in a speedrun, you should be using something else. This plant is just beyond useless. For pretty much every situation, there's a better alternative, and it does not do enough to have that much of a cooldown and cost that much sun. It's not worth it. The plant is not worth it. At its best, it's a repeater alternative. At its worst, it does nothing. If that last one didn't piss the casuals off, this one absolutely will. For what it's worth, Wintermelon is absolutely busted. This plant is extremely strong. The only problem that I have with it is that it's slow. The slowing effect is great for surviving, not so much for speedrunning. That's why it starts to clash with just about every application in speedrunning. It's not fast, it's expensive, and we don't even use melon that much anyway, so we just end up not paying attention to this. I really like Wintermelon as a plant, but it's not worth it for speedruns, so it's gonna go in F tier. I hate to say it, but it's not worth it. Spike Rock is useful on one IL, which is Bobsled Bonanza, and I can't think of another use case for it. Bobsled is one of the most optimized ILs in the game, but at the same time, it's also just one level. I mean, I guess I could put it in D tier though, for the sake of being like better than the rest of them. Like all of these other plants that we don't use, I'll put this in like the lowest part of D tier. Kind of like all these other plants that have like one niche use and then like we don't use them ever again. And finally, Cob Cannon. This is the first upgrade plant since Gloomshroom that isn't like a complete disappointment, and I'm gonna put this in B tier. Just short, sweet, and to the point. Cob Cannon is really good for longer categories. If I remember correctly, the only strategy that's actually faster than Pumpkin Glooms is Cob Cannons. But part of the problem with Cob Cannons is the fact that they're really expensive and it might not be worth getting them down. For longer levels like Survival Endless or Survival Hard, this is a very good plant. It also gets uses in like 100% and all Steam achievements, and it's really fast. It's just, sometimes it's not worth it. Cobs also come with a little bit of baggage in terms of practice. You need to practice the timing with them, but you know, after getting used to it, it's not really that bad. Again, like I said, this plant's really fast, so I'll just put it in B tier. So there you have it. This is the new and improved Plants vs. Zombies speedrunning plants tier list. This is the general idea of plants in a speedrunning context. There are a ton of differences between this tier list and my last tier list. And there's even more differences between this tier list and a casual player's tier list. I put some plants higher that are maybe not viewed as really good by casuals, and I put some plants lower that are maybe viewed as extremely good by casuals. But that's just how it is. Some of these plants are flipped on their head whenever it comes to speedrunning versus casuals, and some of them are in, relatively the same spot. I think this tier list is a way more accurate version of the last tier list, and it's far more instructional to new runners too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you're new, and have a freaking awesome day.